We're all live.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 305 Takes. And before we get started, happy Halloween, everybody. It's the last day of spooky season. So, everybody get that last day of Halloween in, get some, trick or treating in, and, enjoy some Monday Night Football later tonight. Hope everyone is enjoying the day. Now, today we got a very interesting show for you guys. Today, me and Angel are going to be giving our takes on the Dolphins versus Lions game, share our stars and busts from the week for fantasy football, discuss some of the matchups that we had personally in fantasy football, and much, much more. Um, let's get started. Angel, you ready to go? Let's go straight into Dolphins versus Lions, man.
Oh man, Dolphins versus Lions. I will say this for the game overall, it was good. It was exciting. It was entertaining. The only thing I didn't like, and I know this is for your Dolphins, I don't like the defense.
Yeah,
I
the
really
defense looked terrible.
the defense was just bad, and the penalties hurt them so
And
much.
so many offsides in the first half. Yeah,
So
I
many.
didn't understand what was going on there. And it was just interesting to see how the reaction was on Twitter because I mean, if you looked at Twitter yesterday, you would
The
have thought,
pictures, the graphics they kept showing, it was bad.
well, and you would have thought just the discussion around Tua, you would have thought that this guy won the NFL Super Bowl yesterday because earlier in the week there was, a whole discussion about is Tua better than Justin Herbert, and he had stats wise he had a really good game. 29 to 36, 382 yards, 10.6 yards per attempt, three touchdowns, was only sacked twice, quarterback rating of 138.7. Like that's perfect. And even if you have him in fantasy, he put up 32 fantasy points. Like he was balling today. So I do see why people feel the need to defend him, but at the same time, like the Lions are terrible at defense.
Yeah, they're not simply good. We've talked about it for weeks. Like their offense can score. Like there's not a problem with their offense. It's just their defense. They can't
Yeah.
stop anyone.
Yeah, the defense hasn't been good, and this is going back to the Baltimore game that the defense hasn't been good. Really, the only time you can say that they did their job was that last stand against the Bills, but that was a lot to do with the exhaustion of the Bills and how many plays they had run. And you know, you look at according to PFF, they have the Dolphins overall as the 13th graded team. They have them tied for seventh in offense, 17th in defense, and 27th in special teams, which
Yeah.
means two out of the three positions, out of the three groups of the team, have been rated at least below average or bad in the case of the special teams. And that played a part yesterday where it was an obvious situation that the Lions were going to go for it on that fourth down before the end of the first half. And everybody, I mean, I was sitting on the couch and I was like, this is clearly going to be a fake punt, and they get the first down and much more. So I like sometimes like I see it with the coaching staff. Like you can clearly see it offensively. They can move the ball, and it looks like they built an offense that fits completely around the quarterback. And I mean, we have to give a lot of credit to Tyreek
Yeah.
because there
He
was
was.
questions about like what the production would be after
Mhm.
Mahomes, and it has not fallen off at all.
Yeah. The only thing is just sometimes with Tyreek in the offense, I feel like with Tua, he force feeds it to Tyreek. He's like, I gotta throw it to Tyreek. I gotta throw it to Tyreek. Which I don't blame because I'm like, you spent a lot of draft capital on him. You gave him the big contract. Like he's here to evolve you. But when I just see Tua throw it past the ball to Jalen Waddle, it just seems like the natural connection is there. That's what I just see is the difference. With Tyreek, I feel like it's forced, whereas with Jalen Waddle, it's like I do not question the connection at all. I'm like, I know he's there because like all the big time throws, like early in the game, were to Jalen Waddle. Then later on in the game, it went to a lot to Tyreek, but a lot of credit to Tyreek Hill. I feel like he knows the advantage he has almost every defensive back, and he uses it to his advantage. And I felt the biggest play for him was that deep ball that 2-0 just slinged it, and Tyreek made that great adjustment to come back to the ball and
Yeah, because he
catch
underthrew
it.
the hell out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it,
And to
he
your
was not
point,
known
like,
for his arm, but Tyreek did a great
yeah,
job making adjustment to the ball.
and Tyreek, I mean, he's got 100. He is averaging for the season right now 120 yards per game
Yeah.
receiving. And to your point about, I feel like if it's not to Water or Hill, it looks forced to me because if you look at just the stats on the season. Tyreek Hill, 69 receptions on 92 targets, 961 yards. Jalen Waddle, 42 receptions on 63 targets, 727 yards. The next receiving leader for the Dolphins is Gesicki with 21 receptions, 200 yards. Then it's Trent Sherfield with 157, and no one outside of that has gotten to 100, and the next two are Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds.
Yep.
So, Cedric Wilson, who they brought in and looked like it was going to be a piece
Never
of this
seen
offense,
him.
is clearly not. They tried the Braylon Sanders kid, who I know they drafted and then they're a little bit high on. He gets his first reception, fumbles the ball yesterday, so that wasn't great. And the thing about Gesicki is clearly he's a threat catching the ball, but for this offense, they want to keep the tight end to be flexible, where you really need to help out in the running game, and especially in this zone running game, you need guys that are going to block. And the touchdown that Gesicki got yesterday, I thought it was really cool because you actually saw Tyreek go. I mean, you actually saw Tua go through his reads, and that wasn't the first or second read. That was like the third read. And I saw a quote that he said that even in practice they usually never get there because that's like his fourth read. So I thought it was cool that he was able to get to go through the progressions, find Gesicki, and he is a valuable weapon. And especially with the trade deadline coming up on Tuesday, I wonder what the team can do, because I think they definitely need help in the secondary, but I think pretty much every team right now needs help in the secondary. They do have, I don't know if you can combine a combination of Gesicki and Wilson to go get some help in the secondary. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I am happy the team is 5-3. Tua looks good in the offense, and that's the most I can say right now, because the defense has to get better. They do have a bye week coming up in a little bit. Maybe that gives them a little bit more time, and it's the Bears, and I want to say it's somebody else. Oh, the Bears and the Browns the next 2 weeks. So hopefully they can at least put up enough points just to beat them, even if the defense hasn't started to figure it out.
I would like to see the Dolphins run the ball more, because I feel like the offense is just so pass oriented. Because like you said, how many targets does Tyreek Hill have already through 8 games?
92.
That's incredibly high.
He has more receptions than Waddle has targets.
Yeah.
Waddle has 63 targets on the season, and Tyreek Hill has 69 receptions.
That's where I was like, it's so Tyreek centric. So I was like, I understand that, but once you actually play like very good teams in the playoffs, they're going to narrow it down. It's like, all right, if we stop Tyreek Hill, who else is he going to throw to? Because they're going to look, all right, if we just put our best corner on Jalen and we double team Tyreek, who on the Dolphins is going to stop us? So I feel like that will be the only thing I would like to see the Dolphins establish to run more, because Mike McDaniel, they said that's what he was great at with the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, and I just haven't seen it. I really haven't seen them.
I mean, I feel like they don't have the stats, but I do feel like Mostert has been coming on strong the last couple of weeks.
He has. It's just
they don't put up. They just haven't gotten to 100 this year, which is the thing that's a little bit concerning. Because he'll have like 72 yards, and it's like, all right, like I could see him, and especially early in the game, I know like his first run,
got down early, so I don't mind them throwing the ball. So I was like, all right, you're down, pass the ball. But if it's like one score game, like, hey, try to run the ball. Make sure, have your defense on the sideline longer if you know they're going to be this roller coaster.
Yeah, and so Mostert on the season is 452 yards through 8 games, which is 56 yards per game, which is not very good, honestly, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things. And Edmonds, it seems like they don't really want to use in the run game. They would rather use him as a pass catcher, but he struggled the last 2 weeks in actually catching the ball, which is a little bit concerning. And the thing that I'm kind of confused about is that they kept Gaskin and they kept Ahmed on the roster, but they haven't been active. And with Shanahan, I know that now they just traded for Christian McCaffrey, and that's obviously paid huge dividends for them already. But I just thought, once I saw that they kept Gaskin and Ahmed, because those are two guys that can get after you in different ways. Gaskin can kind of be more the power guy, Ahmed's more of the breakaway guy. I thought those guys would be incorporated more, and we would see a more spread out running game where everybody's getting reps, whether it's Mostert, whether it's Gaskin, whether it's Edmonds. Maybe put Edmonds in more passing situations. But it's been Mostert and Edmonds, and that is a good point to bring up. And I'm fine with the running game. I'm just really concerned about the defense, and it's not even it's not even necessarily that I think it's a bad unit as far as talent. It's just where we are at injuries at this point because
Yeah,
they they
it's
lost
hurting.
Brandon. Yeah, they lost Brandon Jones, who led the team in tackles. And when you look at the defensive line, I get that. I get that Phillips has been coming on a little bit stronger as of late, and that's kind of what we saw last year after he got off to a slow start. He got strong, but Wilkins is going to be out there and Phillips is going to be out there. And I know Sealer made the big sack at the end of the game, but it's just a lot of kind of regular dudes. Like, okay, they're out there.
No
They're
one
big bodies.
really
You can switch them
cared.
out. But yeah, it's not anybody they're like, we're going to have to send a tight end to go and chip this guy, and throw off the offenses that way. So I did see a couple of reports saying that the Jets and the Dolphins are
Bradley
in on
Chubb.
Bradley Chubb. So that would be hugely interested, especially because pass rushing and the ability to get after the quarterback, if you want to be a playoff team, becomes really valuable.
Yeah, I would say I'm more on the line with you. I feel like secondary is more. The only reason I say secondary because I do know Xavier is still injured because teams are just simply not afraid to throw the football at him. I mean, yesterday Marvin Jones had a very very solid game. No, it wasn't Marvin Jones. It was it Reynolds that was number 11?
Reynolds was 11, yeah.
Yeah, like he was having an awesome game.
Yeah, and just to the point, I mean, Xavier, who's been known as a ball hawk throughout his career, has only 5 passes defended and 0 interceptions of the season so far,
I
which I
mean,
think just speaks to how he's not 100%, even with him being out there.
yeah, teams are not fearing him. They know it's like, hey, he's injured. Just throw the football their way. And Byron Jones, he's not out there. They're down to who knows what corner on the depth chart. So I feel like corner would help out a lot, but it all depends. And if they are willing to let go of draft capital, because I mean,
This is where their corners ranked this year, according to PFF.
oh
Uh,
man,
the Cater kid,
yeah,
41st out of 111 corners.
it's
Nick
not bad.
Needham, who got hurt,
Yeah,
54th out of 111 corners. Xavier, this has to be his worst
first
grade,
season.
86 out of 111.
Yeah, it's just not been good.
Noah Igbenogany,
Yeah, that one.
101st out of 111 corners. And then the rest of the guys haven't played enough snaps
Yeah,
in
to
defense
qualify.
yet. Yeah, to qualify for that. But the safety position was really a strong spot. They have Javon Holland as a top 25 safety. Brandon Jones is a little bit lower just because his coverage grade isn't the best. But when you look
Yeah,
at how he helps rush defense and actually get after quarterback, and then it was surprising to see that that they had why am I blanking on his name? What's the safety that they brought? Eric Rowe, that he wasn't
yeah,
active for the
Eric
game.
Rowe from the Patriots.
Yeah, and he tweeted out like, I'm just as surprised as everybody else. So and they explained it on the broadcast that once they knew that they were going to have McKinley in at safety, that they needed other people to help in on special teams. But it's like, all right, we were giving up big explosive plays to Jared Goff, and
Yeah,
that's the other thing. He just looks so comfortable in the pocket, and it's like,
yeah,
it's Jared Goff. Like, I've seen this same structure of defense make him look terrible.
yeah. It's honestly quite amazing how last year the best unit of the Dolphins was the defense, and the weak point was the
The
offense.
last
And
2 years, yeah, and
now
now
the
it's
script is
completely
flipped.
changed.
It's
Yeah,
flipped. The
yeah,
offense,
100%.
the offense can score. It's just the defense now, and it's also kind of like the same thing. They were kind of like a mirror image of the Lions. The only thing they had much more talent on offense than the Lions do. That's my only thing with them. But I will say this:
Yeah,
we
because
did
the
get a couple
Dolphins
of good.
had 3.
Oh no,
Go
we
ahead.
did get a couple of good things out of this game because, like we in our next segment, there was a lot of stars in fantasy from this game alone.
This week, you had an absolute chance to put up monster stats depending on who you had on your roster. And we had mentioned that we thought both Waddle and Hill would have good games just because of the speed that they had over the Detroit secondary going into the matchup.
Mhm.
I saw a stat that they had 3 different receivers have at least 3 yards of separation on every route they ran. So
Dang.
that's because usually like a really good separation number is like 2 yards, and a good quarterback is like, that's open for me. 3 yards is like, we're barely playing defense out here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious. I just want to know if they can keep it up. If they can keep it up with Hill, and he can actually break the single season receiving yards record. Because
He
if he does
probably
that his first year in the Dolphins, that would be insane.
He probably will just because, like, I mean, you read the amount of targets and how we talked about before, even when Tua was out, the offense is so Tyreek centric. Like, it is the game plan. First option, Tyreek Hill. Second option, maybe Jalen Waddle or Raheem Mostert. And then you could put Gesicki and then everyone else after. That's
Yeah.
how I feel like the offense is.
Yeah. But listen, I have no complaints about the offense. At least they're moving the
They're
ball.
moving the ball down the field, so you can't be too mad about it,
They lead the league in third down efficiency right now. So
which is
even when
great.
they're backed up on third down, which is a drive that's hugely important for your offense and keeping a bad defense off the field, honestly. So the fact that they're doing that, it looks like McDaniels is adapting, and the coach quarterback marriage seems pretty perfect, honestly. And that's like one of the things you can only kind of
Which is
wish for as an
important.
NFL franchise, because we
Yeah.
see it all over the place where you might have the offensive coach and his system doesn't fit with the quarterback, or the quarterback doesn't fit with the coach's system, and you're like, hey, can we try to find something that works? And in Miami, it looks like they've got it in the first year. So I'm super excited as that, just as a fan. And then when you look at how the offense looks like with these guys, Waddle, that first touchdown pass, I thought was super cool with him and Tua, because he just burns the safety and he's over there
It was
in the corner, and
perfect.
it's not a route that you see go for a touchdown. That little corner, it was to the first pylon, so it wasn't even like it was a deep ball going to the corner of the end zone. So I'm hugely impressed with this team, and honestly, if Tua doesn't get hurt, the record could be even better. But to be 2 games over 500 with the bye still to come, and the Bears and the Browns coming up, you can't be mad at how it's gone so far throughout the season.
Yeah, straight facts. But I want to transition now to stars of the week because I want to read this stat to you. How many players do you think scored over 30 points yesterday?
Dude, I'm gonna say 5, but I know it has to be more.
It's more. I'm going to read them out to you.
It has to be.
So these are all the players that scored 30 or more: Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Dante Foreman, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara. All those players had 30 points or more in fantasy. And I'm just going to keep it plain simple. All of those players are my stars of the week. Anyone who didn't score 30, don't get me wrong, I want to put you up there, but all of those guys hit 30 or more. So I have to give them the stars. Like, I couldn't say anything more about it.
It was a crazy week fantasy, and like honestly, I mean, to pick just one star is hard this week, because I mean, Derrick Henry has an absolute monster game against the Texans. He
Mhm.
he literally owns the Texans. I don't know what the game plan, what Houston thought was going to happen with a rookie quarterback and Derrick Henry. Like, obviously they're going to continue to try to pound the rock, and this is after you give up 3 touchdowns to Josh
Josh
Jacobs. So
Jacobs.
I don't even know what the plan was there, but for me, I think the absolute star of the week has to be AJ Brown.
I
Just
mean,
because he put up the stats, and because what he was doing was absolutely not fair. Like, he was playing fantasy out there by himself.
yeah. I mean, that's why it was kind of hard for me to pick one star. I just put all of them. I was like, hey, if you had over 30, to me, you were a star because Jalen Waddle, the 2 touchdowns really helped him to get over 30. Tyreek, it was really all the receptions and the yards. Foreman, he had a very good game overall, plus the touchdowns. Tony Pollard had an awesome game
Yeah,
overall.
and I mean, it's just so hard to figure out why they don't use him more than Zeke, but it's okay.
I
It's
mean,
okay.
I think we kind of know why, but well, that's a different subject for a different
It's
day. And
okay.
then
And then
Kyler,
McCaff
Kyler just
and Mc,
force feeds DeAndre. He just
yeah,
force
but
feeds it.
like, that team's just stupid. That team's just stupid. That's just a stupid team. Even McCaffrey getting the 3 different touchdowns. He was an absolute wagon, and
40 points.
if they continue to keep finding ways to use him, and that was out without Debo yesterday. So I don't even, yeah. I mean, you got Kamara, who went crazy, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard, Foreman,
All of them.
Travis Etienne, a rookie. We didn't even mention him. He had a solid game in the
That
9 o'clock
Yeah,
the
that's
nine
why I was
o'clock
like,
game.
man, it's hard for me not to mention anyone else. So that's why I was like, hey, to me, if you got to 30, you got to start. Anyone who didn't, it's not that I didn't want to pick you. It's just, come on, look at what all those people did.
and we still have another game going today. And honestly, the Browns defense hasn't been able to stop anybody. And without Chase, I don't know if
T.
Higgins can
Higgins.
be the replacement, but I do expect him to be able to put up a solid game for the Bengals today. So we'll see what happens with that Monday night game. But yeah, this was definitely a week where you either absolutely loved your team and you're like, oh my God, how does this guy have AJ Brown and DJ Moore and one of these running backs? It was crazy. It was a crazy week. For me, I had Pollard in a couple of leagues, so I was appreciative of that. I had Jalen Waddle in a couple of leagues with 2 touchdowns, so couldn't be too mad at this week.
You also have Hill in our league.
Yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir. And I had Dalvin, who finally got me over 20 points. The
Yep.
Pollard thing was crazy. I didn't
Pollard
expect him to get all the yards. I thought, okay, like Zeke's out, like he'll get a couple touchdowns when they're in the red zone, maybe.
Yeah.
But to go for 130
Figured
plus
it'd be a
yards,
lot of CD, Schultz, maybe Michael
and then once they
Gallup.
get down to the red zone, okay, that's the only running back they have, so he'll punch one in. But to have 130 plus yards like that,
He
I
was
was like,
awesome.
okay, I see you. But Kamara was the biggest one to me because that's and DJ Moore because like that, like if you still have those guys in your lineup, you're like, come on, please, bro, like just
Yeah,
give me
you're
1 week.
begging for something.
Yeah,
And
and
look what they did. AK was
especially
awesome.
DK was awesome too. Tyler Lockett could have been good if he actually played well because he had opportunities to score, not fumble. It was a weird day for Tyler Lockett, but I thought it was a crazy week of fantasy because when you
Crazy.
look at it, there's in our leagues there's I think 4 teams that are over 130 points.
Yeah, me.
And no, somebody else. I think somebody is close to 200 in our league.
Yeah, Ed. I think it's
Yeah.
Ed. Let me see. I got you. I'm pulling it up right now. So I have 178. Ed has 191.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm saying. 191
JP
points.
JP has 130, and then Alex has 164.
That's crazy. Like that's a crazy amount of points.
I mean, we'll talk about them later, but I also want to give an honorary star. This one is not for fantasy performances, for actual on the field performance. I want to give an honorary star to Jimmy Garoppolo because Jimmy Garoppolo actually didn't lose the 49ers the game. So a little backstory on why I'm giving him the star. Myles knows because I sent him a video last week. And everyone, this video, honestly, I wanted to cry laughing when I saw it, and I knew I had to send it to Myles. Jimmy G had in the game against the Chiefs threw a pick, lost a fumble, and got safetied. And that has happened in the last 30 years in the NFL. That's happened 28 times. That happened to Jimmy G twice in October.
Yeah.
Like, no one cannot tell me this man has been bad.
Yeah.
So I want to give him an
that's
honorary star. No mess ups yesterday. No mess ups for Jimmy. So kudos
and
to you.
honestly, having McCaffrey honestly kind of makes him a cheat code because he
Yeah.
already doesn't want to throw the ball deep, and now that his relief valve is Christian McCaffrey, I mean,
He's the best
I don't
quarterback on
see
the team.
honestly.
CMC, best quarterback on the team. Make him QB1, Kyle Shanahan.
That would be crazy. Imagine they just run Wildcat. We're like, yeah, we don't even need Jimmy out there anymore.
2008 Dolphins are back.
Just turn in your jersey.
But that
would be crazy.
That was my honorary star.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a weird week of football because you had, I mean, that an honorary star would be PJ Walker and DJ Moore if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So like that's the thing.
That would be to anyone, but since Jimmy G didn't mess up anything yesterday, I was like, all right, you deserve this because after what
I mean, yeah, if DJ Moore just keeps his helmet on, that's the star of the week easily.
Oh well, yeah.
Easily.
But we'll talk about that in the next topic for bust of the weekend. But
nah, you can't say that's a bust. You can't say that's a bust.
The only reason I'm going to say it's a bust because it's just there's a position on the team that was a bust.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but those 2 guys you can't say was a bust.
Oh yeah, no, they weren't.
I honestly feel bad for DJ Moore because
he did set up the
PJ Walker yeah, but it's PJ Walker throwing you this absolute dime with less than 20 seconds left in the game. You have had a season from hell. You've had Baker Mayfield. Who was the guy that they took out? What's this guy's name that they replaced PJ Walker with in that LA game? Whatever his name was, you had him out there throwing you quarterbacks. Baker was probably the worst quarterback we've had all year. Robbie Anderson straight up got kicked off the team,
Yeah.
and traded a day later. So like, why would
The
I
coach
not
was fired.
celebrate? Why would I not celebrate? We beat
Yeah.
Brady last week. Like we're trying to turn our season around. I get that it's automatic. Once you take your helmet off, it's a 15-yard penalty. But then it's like, bro, like I'm paid to be a professional. So is the kicker.
Yeah. No, and that's why I was gonna say we're gonna talk about the kicker in the next segment, but Miles, I think we gotta we'll take a quick little break for
Yeah.
this
Before
one.
we move to the next topic, let's take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor for the podcast, E2G Sports. They are a presenting sponsor for 305 Takes and handle all the behind the scenes aspects for us on the podcast. So always a shout out to E2G Sports. We're live with you guys every Monday at 2:30 to recap everything that took place in the NFL as we're doing right now. And, just got to pour one out for DJ Moore today, honestly. And every Friday, we go live at 3 p.m. for our Football Fridays, where we give you some of the best bets that we're looking at for the weekend, previewing some of the matchups that's going to happen, give, advice for fantasy lineups. If you have decisions to make, whether bye week or a guy's injured, or if you just, you have two options at flex, don't know who to go with, stay tuned on Fridays as we'll, have injury reports, everything ready to go for you to preview for your week. Hopefully get a dub in fantasy and make some money, putting a little wager in on some football. So shout out to E2G Sports, and let's go back to our regularly scheduling programming with Bust of the Week.
Now, usually we do Bust of the Week, but I think we just got to make this bigger. The biggest bust of the weekend.
I mean, it honestly might be the Raiders.
Oh, well, I was going to say the Panthers kicker, bro. That dude was – I understand DJ Moore, the celebration. Yeah, it pushed you all the way back for the PAT, and then it was just bad. But also, bro, in fantasy, I want to know how many points he lost people when he had the chance to win the game
twice.
Had the chance to win the game. So to me, he's the biggest bust of the week. I understand, like, the first field goal, I'm not going to put too much on him because I understand the DJ Moore celebration that did push you back. I get it. And sometimes maybe in your head, you're like, oh, man, this is a lot longer where it needs to be. Maybe I need to go this way, go that way. I understand there might be a lot of stuff running through your head, but you are paid to, like, be calm, cool, and collective in that situation. Yeah. So that, to me, that's my biggest bust of the weekend.
It's hard to disagree, and it's a bad spot. It's a bad spot that DJ Moore put the kicker in, but it's just one kick to end the game, and then you get a redemption shot on a really dumb turnover by Mariota, and this is a regular field goal, and all you had to do is just put it through, and you made up for the mistake that you had earlier, and now everybody's happy. You go home with a road victory. Could have been tied for first place in the division, but nope, just go ahead and miss it again, and it wastes good games by a lot of good guys. Foreman had a great game. PJ Walker, I mean, the throw was amazing. Even Mahomes was like, yeah, this might be the best throw we had all season.
No, I agree. I thought it was perfect, right on the money.
Yeah, and and just like that never happens in that situation. They had no timeouts. They were down 6 points. Yeah. And you literally had the touchdown. All you needed was the extra one to send it home. Send it home. But I have to go with the Oakland Raiders because to score 0 points against the New Orleans Saints, who have not been able to stop anybody this year, is crazy. And Josh McDaniels, I mean, can we just say he's not a good coach?
It's not looking good. And for the bus, like, to put a little extra on your bus, bro, Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Hear this in fantasy, if anyone. 1.2 points. 1 catch for 3 yards. That was his fantasy total yesterday.
Yeah,
this is Devontae Adams, people. No, if Myles didn't pick the Raiders and the kicker for the Panthers didn't do it, I was going to pick Jonathan Taylor, but the whole Raiders offense bust and the Panthers kicker bust. If not, my biggest bust of the week, it would have been Jonathan Taylor.
Listen to this stat about from the Raiders Saints game. This is the first time since 2012 that a team allowing 28 points per game shut out an opponent. It happened twice in one day in 2012, and in both involved the Raiders and the Saints. The Raiders giving up 30.9 points per game, beat the Chiefs 15-0, and the Saints giving up 29 points per game, beat the Bucks 41-0. So that's the third time that's ever happened since 2012, or the first time since 2012 that that's happened, that you're giving up at least 4 touchdowns a game, and then you just magically pitch a shutout. And I get that the Raiders had some injuries. I know Devontae was battling the flu, so that might have contributed to his game, and he was at negative 0.1 fantasy points for most of the day. And I know Waller was out, and they were trying to get him to go right before pregame, but I just don't get how you can't even score a field goal against the Saints. It's not like the same Saints defense as last year. You know, they've had subtractions everywhere. And it's not like we didn't see Andy Dalton throw back-to-back pick sixes 10 days ago. So like you had a whole multiple opportunities to be able to put up points on the board, and just nothing. And it's going to be so weird to talk about and reflect on the Derek Carr era in Oakland/Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I understood the move for Devontae because clearly when it helps and you were college teammates, the connection was there. But clearly just from the time away and then when Devontae was with Aaron, the connection he built with Aaron on the field was way better. And it's not working with Derek.
Well,
and
I don't even know. I just feel like they don't even try to do creative things.
That's why. And I feel like Derek wants to show the whole team, I'm not going to be so locked in on Devontae. I'm going to try to share the ball. It's okay to throw him the ball 20 times. I generally wouldn't be mad if you throw him.
Yeah, but then you were saying
Devontae Adams.
Yeah, but you were saying Tua looks like it's forced when he's going to Hill.
Oh no, like so I have no
because
problem.
He had. But this is my thing. How do you get Devontae and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow get worse? Like that's not how it should work. Like because even if Devontae doesn't get the stats because teams are focusing in on him, that should mean that other people have less attention for them. Yeah. And Jacobs has been better than he was last year. It doesn't make sense. MVS, perfect example. Lazard. Like random dudes.
I mean, a lot of people got big numbers off of him. Well, no, obviously because he was double teamed. The only reason I said I'm okay with you targeting him 20 times because that was your big name. You got Devontae to elevate the offense, just like the Dolphins did with Tyreek. They got Tyreek to elevate the offense. If you brought in someone to elevate the offense, you need to force feed them that football. I'm sorry. That's just how it goes in the NFL. It needs to be pictured. Even though it is sometimes I feel a recipe for disaster, that if you're so centric on the offense is centric on one person, all teams have to focus on is to stop that person, and then next thing you know, you have no game plan to win. But still, how do they get worse? Waller, Renfro, like it's just simply not good. And then they didn't even want to use Josh Jacobs the first couple of weeks until these last
they declined his option. They declined his option, and right now he's currently ranked the #1 running back on PFF. And Devontae, this is his lowest receiving grade since 2017, according to PFF. So if you look at it, the last year he was #1 for them.
Yeah,
he was their #1 graded receiver. Oh, #2, 92 grade in 2021. Another 92 in 2020 when he was the first. 88 in 2019, 4th rated receiver. 87 in 2018, 8th receiver. This year he's at 76 in the 18th ranked receiver that they've graded so far. And like because he's had some good games. Like the first game was amazing. The Chiefs game, they had the connection, but it's like, all right, can you guys like do you know how to adapt? Like like okay, there might be games where like in the Chiefs game where he was able to beat them over the top. But the first game, it looked like they were force feeding the ball, like you said. They were trying to get him just involved all the time. But my thing is, even with the Packers, because like I don't know if you remember this, but they played the Rams, and it was the big thing, Devontae versus Jalen Ramsey. But they ran a play. I don't know if it was for 2, but they were like close to the goal line, and they motioned him to the left, and then motioned him back right before the snap started, and Jalen started going crazy because nobody moved over. Like, be creative, like get that little advantage.
Can get him open.
Yeah, because he's already going to get himself open because he's amazing off the line. But there's little advantages that you can use to your favor to get the defense just a little bit off balance, so they're a step behind. But I think it's just because they have a bad coach, and I don't know if you saw this, but so McDaniels is doing an interview after the game, and
Okay.
they turned off the lights because Mark Davis wanted to speak to him immediately. How weird! They literally turned off the lights in the press conference room
Who
because
knows?
Mark Davis needed to speak to him immediately.
Maybe
Well, I
Mark
mean, because
Davis
he's like, how do you not score against a defense that was averaging 4 touchdowns given up per game?
and the Raiders have scored points. I think they're like top 5 in scoring, like in terms of like total
Are
points as
they?
a team.
I
Like they're
just
top
don't
5.
get what's going on with their
Yeah.
team. Like, I
I
just
think
don't
Mark
get it.
Davis might have told him, "Your job is on the line." Like probably to Nathaniel Hackett this past Sunday, how we all heard like his job is on the line from this game. And no, this is a first-year head coach. He might be fired within 10 weeks. Like that's
And
just unbelievable, Myles. And who knows? Maybe that's what Mark Davis told Josh McDaniels yesterday after the lights. For all I know, because this is the first I'm hearing about it.
it's been a really weird season in Vegas, and I thought honestly because going into the season I wasn't high on the Broncos because I'm not a Russ guy, so I was like the Raiders, they're bringing in McDaniels, who I thought maybe had learned from the
Yeah,
Broncos thing.
you
He had
figured
been
he'd
with
be better than what he was in Denver.
Yeah, and because like, all right, you could say he shouldn't have gotten the chance in Denver because all he had was Tom Brady, but he adapted with Mac last year. So I'm like, all right, maybe
Mhm.
he's learning some different things. Like Mac was, I mean, even if you look at it this year, Mac's struggling in a new offense, which you can say it might be due to the coaching, or you might say that one of the offensive coaches is better at being able to, draw stuff up. But then he goes to Vegas and there's talent around him. They trade for Devontae. They kind of fixed the offensive line, which is kind of crazy considering where they
Yeah.
were just last year. And
Mhm.
no, still can't figure it out.
Nothing. It's
Yeah.
it's honestly quite unbelievable. But that's a good mention. And then for honorable,
This is what I was going to ask you.
all right.
I forget the weekend. How about the biggest bust through this point of the season? I'm going to give you 3 options:
Okay.
the Rams, the Bucks, or um, the Packers. Who are you saying is the biggest bust through this point in the season?
Honestly, the Rams.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. They are the Super
Dude,
Bowl
we
champ.
low key should have seen it coming. I'm kind of
Yeah,
mad at
like
us for not
you
being
have
on
no
like their
depth.
unders.
The F them pick strategy screwed you, and
Literally.
now look at the talent that you have. Obviously, you're very top end heavy, but it's only they can only carry you so far. They
And I mean, we started talking about it right before we started talking about the Cooper Cup and how he had went down at the end of the game, and I was like, if he can play, they're not moving the ball. Like
I
their
have no
offense
idea
is
what the
not
offense
going
is gonna
anywhere.
do. Their
I,
offensive line gets beat like this.
like that, and like I get Robinson actually showed up a little bit yesterday, but it's like he's obviously not been able to find the connection with
Matt.
Matthew Stafford, and if he's going to be the wide receiver number 1, and now Ben Skoranek, who plays already too much, is going to have to be wide receiver number 2, you're
Yeah.
not running a professional offense.
Yeah, like it's definitely coming back to bite them. And that's what I feel might happen to the 49ers. Because what picks do they have now after doing the trade for Trey Lance and then now Christian McCaffrey? Like, what do they have?
Yeah. The only thing I will give them credit for is that they've been able to find just freaks on the defensive line. And they've
Yeah.
been able to keep the defense consistently good. Because McVay, he's kind of ebbed and flowed with the defense. When he had Staley, they were good. When he
Yeah.
had Wade Phillips, they were good. But there was years in between where it was like when they had
It was
Raheem
like, yeah,
Mostert.
up
Remember, it
and
was like,
down.
or not Raheem Mostert. What was the dude that was the coach of the Falcons? Raheem.
Oh, dang. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, something Raheem Morris was the coach,
Raheem
and
Morris.
they struggled a little bit there. So, remember there was all the conversations about maybe McVay steps away after the Super Bowl, maybe Donald steps away.
Yeah.
Like
And then
I
they got
I
Aaron
know
Donald's contract restructured. He came back. Then Sean McVay
I
came back.
wonder if they regret it, especially McVay, because McVay, if he would have walked away after the Super Bowl, any coaching job that came up, he would have been the number 1 candidate. He could have been on the NFL Network. Just he would have been probably one of the most sought after analysts because he still can put together an offense that looks good. It's just that his quarterback is clearly physically limited this year.
Yeah.
I know they try to downplay that. Once we started hearing the elbow stuff, bro, we should have known. We should have known. because they were already didn't have the depth needed to like overcome something that made them a little bit worse. And the
Yeah.
Von Miller thing, the elbow thing, losing Odell, it was a lot. But honestly, for me, I, I'm gonna say the Packers because I
I
just don't know what the
understand the
plan
Packers.
is.
Yeah, I have no idea what the plan is. I mean, that's going to be their whole thing.
And
But
like
it's
I
just
can't even figure out the plan
they're
like between the organization and the player. Because like, all right,
yeah,
Rodgers wanted the money, right?
yeah,
Rodgers wanted the money, but
and
now
he
you
got
got
it.
to go out there and get beat up by Buffalo's defensive line because none of your guys get open like Devontae. Like that,
Yep,
that's the trade-off. But then
you're out there
I just
running with
don't get
nothing.
why did they draft Jordan Love?
Yeah, now it's
Like,
gonna make the question.
dude,
You
what?
literally wasted a pick.
A whole first round pick, and I get okay, yeah, you take the quarterback late in the first round because you get the fifth year option if you're good. But if you're never going to let him play,
Why do you have him?
like okay, I could understand if it was a second round pick because the Patriots drafted Garoppolo, but the fact
That's
that it's a
fair.
first round, the
Yeah,
fact that it's a first round pick and he literally will not play, it's
yeah,
crazy. And it's like even if he were to be a free agent going into next year, like okay, maybe the Panthers let him start, maybe the
yeah,
Giants, depending on what happens with Daniel Jones. But even if he goes and signs with another team, you can't be like, oh, I'm super confident, he might be able to turn it around. I don't even think it would be a situation like Baker, where it's like, oh,
yeah.
I've seen him do something before. Maybe he can
We
put it
kind
together
of
in a new
do
system. Now it's
because I've
like,
watched
okay,
him.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but that's the whole thing. The Packers, I don't even know, and then the defense to have so many first round picks on that defense, like it's just simply not looking good. So the Packers are definitely high up there, but because the Rams are the Super Bowl champs, and we did have expectations for them, I do have to say the Rams. That's just my personal thing on it. If not, honestly, I would have said the Bucks.
I do feel the Bucks, but
Because,
it's
bro,
just
Tom
weird
Brady
over
to
there.
have 9 touchdown passes through 8 games after
That's
last year
crazy.
he led the league in all these stats, and guess what? He's still top 5 in pass attempts, but he's, like, middle of the pack or below average in every other statistic.
Yeah. And the fact, and it's just so weird because that first game, like we saw Julio look good, and we're like, oh, dude, they're gonna be a buzzsaw again. And it seems like literally every person on the defense has gotten worse since the
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, they've gotten
And
worse.
when they went to that Super Bowl, it was like, wow, they have so many weapons on offense. And I get it, like you lose some of the guys, they get older, but it was like, all right, but they also have this really, really good defense.
Yeah,
And no,
there's
and all they did different was make the defensive coach the head coach, and the
yeah,
defense fell apart.
and look at the offense now. The offense doesn't even look good,
Yeah,
but
and Fournette doesn't look good. The O line,
yeah,
okay, yeah, they're injured. Worf still is good. Worse is still good. I'm still mad that they traded up right before the Dolphins to take Worse,
yeah,
and we took
but
Austin
that
Jackson.
was
But
that
no,
was
that's
GM
life.
Tom Brady doing the magic. But I think we gotta move on because we are a lot about fantasy football. Me and Miles talk about it, and I want to talk to you guys about Miles's matchup in our league. So the current score right now, Miles is up 121 to 110. He's playing Nick, and both have one player left to play. Miles has Joe Burrow, while Nick actually has Nick Chubb. I want to know, bro, are you nervous?
I'm not that nervous, just because I do feel like Cleveland might get down by a lot and scrap the running game, just
Okay.
because that defense is terrible. But I need to see how the first half plays out because if if Cincinnati isn't up by at least 10 going into the second half, then I think we might start. Because remember that Pittsburgh game that they had earlier this year, and
Mhm.
the over hit in the first half, and it was like a super low
Yeah.
total. And then the second half they just took the air out of the ball. Like there was that ball was not going in the air anymore. So if that's what happens, which honestly is a strong possibility because that's how the Browns should play because they're just limited by Jacoby Brissett and outside of Amari Cooper because now with Njoku out, I don't think Donovan Peoples-Jones, even though it's Eli Apple, I just don't think Donovan Peoples-Jones is gonna, be the game breaker that you can reliably count on. But I was really nervous because It was at like 86% because most of my guys played in the 4 o'clock window.
Yeah,
I only had 2 guys that played in the one. I had two Jack. I had no, I had Robinson, the Jags defense, and Tyreek Hill play in the 1 o'clock window, and
yeah,
he had I think like 4 or 5 guys in the 1 o'clock window, and
yeah.
because like I still had so many left to go, the projections were at like 78% that I was projected to win, and then before the late night game kicked off, and I got 7 points or 10 points from Tyler Bass, and I was able to put the distance, it was at like 50-50. So that's when I was actually worried because I was like, what happens if the Bills only score touchdowns and he only gets 4 points off extra points?
I mean, that's something to
That's
look
when
at.
I started getting concerned.
Because I mean, every other game, I'm gonna be honest, the games are already over.
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
is the only one that has a chance.
yeah, because I mean, Dom is the score is 164 to 94. Alex is beating Dom. Dom has 2 players left. I don't think Dom is gonna touch
I
close.
mean, that
Maybe.
would be the comeback of the century right there if that happens.
Oh well, I'll have one that will top that. Then there's JP who's up 130 to Ryan who has 86 points. Ryan has 4 players left to play, so there's a solid chance. The only thing Ryan has Amari Cooper, Hayden Hurst, Cleveland's defense, and Cincinnati's kick. Oh no, Cleveland's kicker. And then yeah, the Moises and Ed game, that one's officially over. Like no one's left to play. And then there's my game. I'm playing Pete, a rematch of Myles's NFC fantasy championship last year. The score is 178 to 78.
Yeah.
And Peter has 1 player left to play, and that's Joe Mixon.
100
So
points.
100 points from Joe Mixon. I mean, bro, if he does it, I'll be like, that's the comeback of the century. Like I would be like, I would quit playing fantasy football at that moment. I'll
Yeah,
be like, all right,
that
I'm
would be.
done. I would retire. I'll be like, guys, I'm hanging up the keyboard, the cleats, the hat, whatever, the GM hat, coach hat. That's what it would be for me. But bro, that was this week of fantasy football, like you just said, was crazy because I mean, I wanna read out everyone the lineups from me and Ed because we scored the most, and I'll read Alex. So my lineup: Lamar 21 points, Dalvin Cook 25, Ramondre Stevenson 21, AJ Brown 40, Chris Godwin
AJ Brown was cheat code.
cheat code, Chris Godwin 13, Dalton Schultz 13, Justin Jefferson 16, Eagles defense 13, Tucker 8 points, and I had the Bears kicker who gave me 6.5 points. Now you feel like that was good. I'm gonna also read you Alex before I get to Ed because Ed had probably the best lineup ever. Alex had Jalen Hurts 28 points, DeAndre Swift 14 points for his first game back, pretty good. Deontay Foreman 31 points, Stephon Diggs
Snapped.
22 points, Michael Pittman 12 points, Denver's tight end 12 points, Michael Carter 10 points. The 49ers defense gave him 5. Young Hoi Koo 14 points.
He snapped.
Yeah. And then he had the Texans punter who gave him 12.7 points.
Oh, that's a great pickup because all that game was punts.
Yeah. And
All that was.
now I'm going to read you Ed's lineup, bro. Ed's lineup was probably the greatest fantasy football lineup I've ever seen from this past weekend. The greatest. Like, I'm going to read it out. Dak Prescott, 25. Derrick Henry, 35. Alvin Kamara, 42. CeeDee Lamb, 18. Mike Evans, 18. Taysom Hill gave him a solid 8 points. Chris Olave, 10 points. Cowboys defense, 10 points. Jason Myers, 11 points. And the punter for the Commanders, 10 points.
Double digits pretty much everywhere, right? Every position. Yeah. And the Henry thing. Yeah. And the Henry thing.
So I was like, oh my
It's
God.
not even fair.
He had arguably the greatest fantasy lineup I've ever seen.
Like, you can't be mad if you lose to that team. Like,
You
there's
can't
nothing you
be,
can
'cause it's
even
like,
do.
what can you do?
Yeah. There's like, you couldn't predict that. Like, there's not even a trade you could have made that would have even made the game close.
And then his opponent was Moy, and oh man, when we talked the last Friday, like the season from hell, bro, it just
Again,
continued.
bro. Again. This has been cursed for him. This has been cursed for him this week. And it's just, this is what you love and hate about fantasy, because you're like, oh my God, like I can't, whatever. Like I got next week where I can finally prove it. And then next thing you know, somebody puts up 150 points on you and you're like, yo.
Yeah. And now he's gonna be 1-7.
At least he's got the one though.
Yeah,
At
it
least
was
he's
on
got
me.
the one. At least he's not searching for his first victory.
That win was on me. And that week he actually had the most points scored. So credit to him. But man, like that was just hurtful. But I will say this to everyone outside of this league, in our E2G fantasy league,
Yes, sir.
we scored a total as of right now 188 points, and our opponent has 152. We
We're
both have one
back
player
to
left to play.
500.
Yeah, we have each team has one player left to play. They have Donovan Peoples-Jones, and we have Trey Hendrickson. So I like our chances. I like our chances. And we're
Yep,
like
back
Myles
to
said, we're about
500.
to be 500. About to be 500. Respectable 4-4. Very respectable.
This is our first time at or above 500 since we were 1-0. So, turning around from week 1. And if I don't get killed by Nick Chubb today, I will go 4-0 across all leagues that I'm in. This is the first time that will happen this week. I think the last 2 weeks I was 3-1, but now I've actually, because I know we lost E2G, one of them. So 4-0 going into this week. I couldn't be happier. And honestly, I really didn't have any of the crazy guys. Like in my one league, I had Lamar, Dalvin, Kenneth Walker. I got T. Higgins left to play, Jalen Waddle, Taysom Hill. I had Pollard, Dolphins defense, which got 0, which at least they didn't get negatives. They got 0.
Yeah.
And I had Young Huku. But that's I had Kelsey on a bye, and my bench is so bad. Deontay Johnson, I feel bad for him. I just feel bad for all those Steelers receivers too, because it's like,
Bro,
how are you in a blowout and you still can't get numbers? Like, I feel bad for you legitimately, because like how is that possible that you get blown out and you still can't put up numbers?
Easy. You get the doors beat off of you from the start of the game to finish. Like that was bad. Like it was bad.
Yeah, that was not a good look for the Steelers, and I believe they go into their bye this week. Which, I mean, I don't think there's a team that needs a bye worse than them. Yeah, I don't think there's a team right now that needs a bye worse than them. But maybe the Buccaneers, honestly. But at least they got the little mini bye with playing on Thursday. But
yeah,
and if you look at next week, I was already telling Angel it's a weird week going into next week of the NFL. So we just wrapped up week number 8. Well, we'll wrap up week number 8 with the Monday night game with the Cleveland Browns versus the Cincinnati Bengals. But next week we start off Thursday night, Eagles Texans. See you later. It'll have some impact fantasy because a couple people have Pierce. You might have Cooks on the Texans, but I don't think there's anybody else that you might have on the Texans. The Eagles, obviously, you got AJ Brown, Sanders, Hurts. Okay, so and it should be a game where they run away with it easily. So if you got some Eagles guys, I like that matchup. But then the rest of the games this week are just odd. Chargers go to Falcons. Dolphins go to Bears. Panthers go to Bengals. Packers Lions. I don't even know what to make of that game, because the Lions have no pass defense, but the Packers have no pass offense. Yeah. Raiders Jaguars is another odd game. Like, I don't think either team should deserve to win that game. Colts Patriots, like, no thank you. I do not want to see Sam Ellinger versus Bill Belichick. I just saw Zach Wilson look like a middle schooler out there against them. Bills Jets, thank you, no thank you. Vikings Commanders, we got a Kirk Cousins revenge game. You like that? Seahawks Cardinals. That one I'm actually interested in, because I'm actually a fan of this. I'm actually a fan of the Seahawks team. I'm like legit a fan of the Seahawks. They're playing good, and they're just solid. Like, they don't really make mistakes. They capitalize off the mistakes you're gonna give them. And I mean, DK and Tyler are still really good with Gino, and Gino's been good.
Yeah,
Gino's been good. So I like that matchup.
Yeah, they're capitalizing from the mistakes. I mean, Richie James had 2 muff punts, and they cashed on both of them. So credit to the Seahawks. They're playing football that will win them games. Whereas, I mean, they were playing the Red Hot Giants, and we thought, like, a couple of weeks ago, we were like, when we looked at their schedule, it was like, could the Giants be like, what, 8-1, 9-1 by like a certain time? And no, they beat them. So credit to the Seahawks. And
only gave up one offensive touchdown, or one defensive touchdown on that Saquon rush, but that was after Lockett had fumbled inside the 5. So you can't be mad at how the defense has been playing, and the offense. Yeah, and I love Walker. He runs super unconventional, super
Yep.
unconventional. He runs like stop and start. It's really weird, and he puts up numbers fantasy wise as well. And then I know the NFL had big, big, big plans for this game because it's only one of two games that are in the 4 o'clock window for next week, which is the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers.
No, thank you. I won't
Which
watch
I
that.
mean, I know that was what that NFC. It was the second round of the NFC playoffs last year with the
Yeah.
Rams going ahead and beating the Bucks in the same matchup in Tampa Bay as well. So
Both
it's
of them is
just the
bad.
I mean I can't wait to see what the over under for sacks is in that game. The betting number on that because I'm smashing the over. I am smashing the over on
Probably
that
like
one.
4.
It has to be. I honestly 5.5. I think both teams could get 3 apiece, honestly. And then
Yeah.
Sunday night, this one would be. I mean, it depends on who the quarterback is going to be for the away team. I don't think it's going to make it like, oh, they are going to win the game if this happens. But I could see him because currently the line is at 11. I could see him covering the spread. But Titans at Chiefs is the Sunday night football game. And then the Monday night football game, this is a weird game as well. Ravens at Saints.
Yeah.
Like, what am
I
I
mean,
supposed to do with these games?
yeah. So I mean, fantasy wise, it's gonna be even hard to like just look at your matchups because it's like, oh man, all right, I know this guy's playing this team, so I want this player because they can run the ball. This team can't stop the run, and then it's gonna be so weird. But man, it's just simply not looking good for fantasy matchups this week. But at least the good thing is that if you guys aren't gonna be necessarily like the matchups, there's actually a lot of good basketball this week. There's a lot of like very good matchups this week in basketball that you can watch,
And
and some of them
basketball's
are
starting to get
actually like,
spicy.
yeah, some of them are very good matchups. Like I do like what I'm seeing from teams that are actually playing the Warriors. I mean, look at the Pistons. The Pistons beat them.
Dude, the Warriors do not play defense
They don't.
at all.
I
Like,
mean,
they
bro,
don't play defense.
Cade was doing anything he wanted with that defense,
They lost to
and
Charlotte and Detroit back to back.
yep. And that's with after
And
Clay getting ejected.
yeah, into it with Devin. Yeah, and they haven't really had an answer from that point. I
They
know
just
that they
look
beat the
old.
Heat.
Some of their guys look
Yeah, they beat the
old. And if
Heat
it's
in
not Steph
between
or
that.
Jordan Poole, they just simply don't do anything.
Yeah, they struggle to score really. And Wiseman has looked good for them because they kind of need the size, but I just don't because he hasn't been able to play in these games over the last couple of years. I just don't think he's where they need him to be defensively to be, their rim running center that can protect the paint for them. But even you look at Brooklyn with with the talent that Brooklyn has, you thought they would at least turn it around in the regular season. That hasn't
Yeah,
happened. Philly is kind of sort of turning it around, but I don't know if I like them. The Heat suck. Like, it pains me to say that, but the Heat have not been a good basketball team so far through this season.
yeah.
And
I mean,
the
for
Lakers,
anyone,
the Lakers are comedy to watch.
yeah. Oh well, for anyone interested, okay, well we'll get to that. We actually have a question. Okay, from McCurley Wolf. I'm 2-6, and I need to win the rest of the way. I have AJ Brown, JJ, and Olave. I have wide receiver. Running back are Kamara, Etienne, J. Rob, D. Harris, and Foreman. Should I trade Brown and Murph for Jamar Chase and James Conner? Honestly, no. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do that because
Jamar Chase, that's how you're gonna lose.
the
Because Jamar
reporting
Chase is not
around
gonna be able
Chase
to
has
play.
yeah, the reporting around Chase has been really weird about if he's actually going to be able to come back this year. So I would stay away from Chase. If you're looking, I mean, you have a solid team because ETN's been coming on, and I think he's going to be even more involved now that James Robinson's out. Uh,
I mean,
Olave is the one that I think is probably going to be the most boomer bust just because of his quarterback situation.
if anything, trade Kamara because I feel like after this game, his
Yeah,
value is
this
so
could.
sky high. I would try to trade Kamara. If you could probably get maybe an RB2
I
for
mean,
him.
if you could get like a Stevenson, if you could get Ramondre for Camara, or if you could get, uh, I don't know, it might be a little bit too rich to just do
Maybe an Aaron
Camara for
Jones because
Walker.
the Packers are running the football very well.
Yeah, but I hate that offense, bro. I
I
hate that.
mean, if you could get a quarterback and maybe an RB2, I feel like that
Who do
could
you say
definitely
his
help you.
quarterback is?
Um,
Or it didn't mention it?
I don't have his quarterback. He didn't mention it, but I would say try to do that.
Yeah, if you could do Kamara for like if you could do Kamara for like even if it was Gino and Ramondre Stevenson, I wouldn't be
I
mad at
take
that.
it.
I wouldn't be mad at that at all.
Yeah.
At all.
And then for receivers, you have ammo to actually do something. I mean,
Yeah, even if you have to throw a lot, if you have to take both those Saints guys off your team to get better at quarterback, and like a Ramondre, a Kenneth Walker, I mean, I would say one of the Carolina guys because I mean they haven't had any production, but I think it's just going to be hard to dictate who's going to be the actual starting running back when they're both healthy. Because I know Chuba missed this last week, but
yeah,
if you could get somebody like that or I know I'm going to try to sell high on Dalvin. So
yeah,
just shop around and look at some of the guys. I mean, because you already have ETN. ETN is a guy I would look at because, his role is going to increase now that they sent James Robinson to the Jets. But I'm trying to think if there's anybody that's coming off the top of my head. I mean, I know that he might not start, but Herbert for the Bears is good.
yeah. Herbert has done good. Another weapon I feel like you can go after for. I mean, if you're just looking for someone with targets, maybe if you can flip Olave and someone for Chris Godwin, because Chris Godwin gets so many targets with Brady, that can probably help you. Or if not, because if you're willing to trade AJ Brown or Justin Jefferson, I say you have to get two receivers in return for one of them. You have to get two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have to get two of them.
But I wouldn't even do that. I wouldn't even do that if I were you. Just my
Yeah,
opinion.
but
And
those are
and I mean, with that roster, 2-6, it sounds like you probably had some bad luck as far as matchup wise.
breaking news. Roquan Smith has just been traded to the Baltimore Ravens.
To the Ravens. To the
Yep.
Ravens. So they beat the Patriots and trade Robert Quinn. They lose to the Cowboys but look competitive and say
And trade
Roquan, we're
Roquan
good.
Smith.
Wow. That's
Hey,
that's
that's football,
that's
but
the NFL for you, man.
that's the NFL. But
What a
McCurley,
business.
those were good questions. We do have to end the show, guys, but we will give everyone a little heads up. If you are going to the Miami Heat game on Wednesday against the Sacramento Kings, me and Myles will be there. We'll be there with two of Miles's friends. We're
Yes,
gonna
sir.
watch the game. We're gonna go to the meet and greet. If any of you are there at the meet and greet, if you want to say what's up to us, talk sports, honestly, like just come to us. Like I
Yeah,
generally
we'll be
wouldn't care.
around. Yeah,
Yeah, just
definitely hit this guy's
if
up.
you just walk up to us and it's like, yo, man, I want to talk sports, I'll be like, okay, cool, shoot. What do you got?
Yo, the Heat suck. I'm like, yo, I've been saying that
That's
for
what
like 3 days now.
I'll be like, yeah, you're honestly right. But I mean, we'll see. But guys, this was a lot of fun.
And
We're gonna
until
be
next
back.
time,
We'll be back on Friday, guys.
peace.